Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast, featuring conversations with Silicon Valley creatives. I'm David Valdespino, your host and executive editor of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates. Welcome to the Content Magazine podcast. My name is David Valdespino. I am the executive editor of Content Magazine, and today we have a special guest who has a special show coming up, but I want to go ahead and introduce her first and make sure I get everything straight here. So we're joined by San Jose native Arabela Espinoza, who is a photographer, a former Content Magazine staffer, a longtime contributor, co-founder of Weekend Creative, which is a creative agency that manages art direction and commercial production, and has worked with national brands such as Camelback, Benefit Cosmetics, and Lexar. She's done work with Adobe, was featured at Adobe Max as a speaker, and she's co-hosted the podcast Per Our Last Email, which gave a behind-the-scenes look at the creative industry and freelance work. In 2026, she'll be featured as artist-in-residence as part of the August edition of the Haberdasher Shows, where she will display a more personal, creative exploration of her creativity through mixed media. And that photo show will take place on Wednesday, August 5th at Haberdasher, and it's the official pre-party for San Jose Jazz.
Correct.
Cool. So we're going to get into all of that, but I wanted to get the introduction first, let people know who we're with. But thank you so much for joining us today.
I know. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love everything to do with content and just being a part of the creative community here. So I'm very, very excited and very honored to be here. So yeah, very full circle right now.
Totally. Yeah, because you worked with Content Magazine. Obviously, you still shoot for the magazine.
Yes.
I've known you for quite a while. I think we met initially at a San Jose photo walk at Stanford.
Oh my gosh.
Which was
actually
quite a while back. But
yes.
But before that, we listened to your podcast, Alyssa Ray and I. So I was always familiar with you and your work. But it's cool to be able to talk and learn more about what you got
I'm excited.
going on.
So yeah, excited for this chat and just to kind of get into it.
Yeah, so I want to start with the camera, and I want to start with photography.
Okay.
I did a little bit of a deep dive, found your Flickr.
Oh my gosh.
From back when, right? But I thought the cool thing about looking through those photos is you've always kind of had an emphasis on portrait photography. There's a lot of faces in there, and so I guess even zooming.
Wow, you really did a deep dive.
So zooming back.
I don't even think I've seen my Flickr in years.
I know. So you gotta rebirth that thing. Yeah,
maybe I should.
But what was the kind of specific spark that made you pick up the camera in the first place?
Yeah, I actually have like a really fun little story. It was actually in the 4th grade. I knew I wanted to do photography. At that time, growing up, my mom has always worked like extremely long hours. And so I, in the elementary school, had to be part of the after-school program. Yeah. Just because, she was able to pick me up not until like 6 p.m. or whatever it was.
And you're born and raised in San Jose?
Born and raised in San Jose, correct. Yeah. East Side.
Yeah.
And now I'm here downtown. But yes, grew up on the East Side, right by Pink Elephant. Got a shout out. Story and King. Totally. And yeah, so but I actually, even though I grew up in the East Side, I actually went to a lot of schools over in the West Side of San Jose, partly because, my aunt, she moved to Fresno like in 3rd grade, and I didn't have a babysitter anymore. So, but I did have an aunt on my dad's side that could pick me up. And so anyway, so I started going to schools all over there. And in the 4th grade, I was in the after-school program, and I remember at first, like, I was a little jealous of like kids that could get picked up at like 3 p.m. and but then I started to realize like how cool it was in the after-school program. There were so many classes available to us, so many arts, dance, like all these things. So I think that was like already kind of, in my family, there's not really a whole like emphasis on arts or any of that, and so I think that really was the place of origin as far as creativity goes. And there's this one specific class, this teacher, he came in, and it was a Polaroid manipulation class.
In elementary school.
4th grade.
I love that.
After school program.
Yeah.
So cool. And we were taking Polaroids, and then we would like scratch them up. We would like, we weren't playing with the fire because we were 4th graders, but like, he'd put fire to them, or we'd like pour liquids on it and all this stuff.
And was that before they came out of the camera, or was that after?
After.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, as they're developing. Like we're like messing with them and doing all this stuff. And I just remember being so fascinated by the fact that one, we could take a picture and have like a very physical a photo here in front of us, but then I was super just like excited about the manipulation part of it too. And so I think that's where photography really started to kind of, the love for it started to plant a seed in me. So
that's
yeah,
awesome.
4th grade.
That's awesome. Yeah, what a cool after-school
yeah,
program
right?
to have.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of different like arts and crafts and classes and dance and music. So it was super fun. And I think, but since then it was like photography from that point on. And I begged my mom for a camera, obviously, as one does, like in middle school. But I do remember even looking back at old childhood photos of me, like I think I really liked the camera.
For sure. Well, that was kind of like a unique part of growing up with cameras, and then with the digital age that kind of hit. You know what I mean?
Like film, like the kind of those disposable cameras
for
with
sure.
flash, and then and then eventually a digital camera. My mom had one for work.
Yeah.
And I remember I would steal it often to go take photos. Eventually, I asked her. I was like, "Hey, I want a camera of my own," and for my birthday, she got me one. So that was really cool. And so that's where it all started. So.
Very cool. Yeah. So when we talk about kind of moving into portraits, obviously you do portraits for the magazine.
Yes.
What kind of drew you to capturing humans and people as opposed to like abstract or landscapes? I saw a couple of those on there too. But
well, it's funny because it was really in high school where I really started to like shoot all the time, right? Like I think all of us go through that phase of like photographing anything and everything.
Yeah.
And I was doing that, but I actually started off with a lot of self-portraits.
Okay.
So I did a lot of self-portraits. And then at some point, it's high school, people talk and people say things. And I feel like I started hearing through the grapevine, like, this girl's so like into herself. All she's doing is taking self-portraits. And I just immediately got in my head and I was like, never again. So I started photographing everybody else around me. And so it but it was like great anyway, just because I was like, you know what? Yeah, there's people around me that are amazing and I want to put a spotlight on them and help them shine. And so that's kind of what geared me towards portrait.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of a misconception with self-portraits.
Yes.
Because
I don't think that way now. I'm,
but I feel like in some ways it's kind of the subject that you know best in some ways, and like
you're comfortable with yourself too. So for me, it was like I was in a space where I was still learning the camera and settings and all the stuff, and it was just easier for me to like set up a tripod and take pictures of me outside or here, and just kind of get over the like fear or the embarrassment of like shooting and getting to know my gear basically.
Yeah.
So you're almost always more comfortable with yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so, but that actually worked in my favor because I was like, okay, I know what I'm looking for. I can like, I can see what I'm doing, and now I have this like, I guess, way to like then tell other people how to like, as far as directing and posing and
totally.
all that, so.
And as a self-described social butterfly,
yes.
What was that kind of like when you moved into shooting other people and like? I imagine usually it starts with like friends or whatever, but you had some strangers and obviously working with the mag, you're kind of cold calling and just showing up with your camera, right? So
literally.
like, what was that kind of what's that kind of transition like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just natural for me because I am a social butterfly, but I think I'm just like a sociable person in the sense that I really like to get people to be comfortable with themselves, and I can kind of start a conversation with them, get them to like lower their defenses, and really kind of make them comfortable. A lot of the times, right, with content, like some of these people have never been photographed before, or they'd have not liked their experience in the past. And so my biggest thing is like, I really want to get to know the person and like have these conversations and get them to just relax a little bit.
Totally.
Because that's when you get them the best,
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's a good transition here too, because when you're on set, when you're shooting with someone, commercial or portrait, what's kind of your favorite part of the process? Because like you've wandered into our Alyssa and mine studio before, like just scoping out places, right? So like, is it finding the locations? Is it working with the person? Is it doing the mood boards? Is it the gear? I mean, photo people are like big gear heads.
I know. And I'm so like not a technical person. I'm so much more intuitive when it comes to creativity. It's funny, I feel like and I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point, but like as I got into like product photography specifically, like that was a very different medium. But I have always been someone that loves the shooting aspect, like the shoot itself, right? Like I love being on the fly. Like I will say that I like to location scout. Yes, I'm like constantly taking photos and kind of keeping a library of like, oh, this is a good spot. I'm looking for lighting, I'm looking for color, texture in the backgrounds, especially if I'm shooting outdoors.
Yeah.
I for the longest time, actually, I was very, very intimidated by like studio lighting.
Yeah.
And so I just felt most at ease and like comfortable shooting outdoors. And I don't know, I just like, I'd have my model or my person, and I'd pick a location, meet me there, and then we'd just like go,
Yeah.
So there wasn't quite as much like, I think, planning at that time, really. There was some initial thing, location, outfits, let me see what you have, blah, blah, blah. But nothing like where there was something more elaborate or like intricate in terms of the art direction or that kind of stuff. It wasn't really until, I think, when I started doing editorials for content. So like there was two different aspects to like me working at content. It was like the portraits, right, for people being featured, but then we were also working on editorials too, which was really fun.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple examples in the magazine. I mean, a lot of examples of your work that use really interesting places.
Yes.
Interesting lighting, natural light. I think of the shoot that you did with T, who is the youth poet laureate at the time.
Oh, yes.
Where
we went to a Target location that had this like red circle that was so perfect, and she had like, I just felt like that color was very much her color, and then just this unique like spot there.
For sure, but like
that lent itself really well for that.
I feel like people walk by that all the time. Target, nobody thinks anything about it, and that was the interesting thing too. Is like I was like, that looks familiar. Like, where do I know that from? And so it kind of drew on that familiarity.
Yeah.
But yeah, you talked about color too. I think that's another aspect of your photography is just the colors that you use and the lighting. What kind of inspiration do you draw from? Like, are there other photographers that you take inspiration from, or what does that look like for you?
Yes, definitely. There's a couple specific like photographers in mind. One of them in particular, his name is Jimmy Marble, and his late wife now, Jessie Chamberlain Marble. They are a power couple, very colorful. I mean, they kind of were those like pioneers in terms of like that soft, dreamy, colorful aesthetic that's just like, and kind of like wonky, like styling and posing. Like I'm thinking like body parts being cut off, like a woman like jumping into a bush and her legs sticking out, like things like very unique, posing and art direction, and just the colors too. Just there's something about the vibrancy. I think that I had a phase of very like muted, that kind of like rugged, and I think there's like, phases in photography and things that are popular, and I just remember I started really leaning into more color, and I think a lot of it really stemmed from like photographers like that, but also just even getting into product photography. I think that was like a really where color and texture really exploded for me.
Totally, yeah. So another great transition. That's awesome. But so you studied advertising at San Jose State University. Was there kind of like, well, you were doing photo before that.
I was doing photo before that.
So was that like an impetus and an inspiration for doing advertising?
So it's actually really funny. I actually went to college to study forensic science with a focus on chemistry and a psychology minor. And that decision was partly because my mom, she's a Mexican mom, and culturally, creativity is not really a career.
Yeah.
And so that was something that she kept being like, no, you need stability, you need a stable career, like
Law,
just pick something.
Science,
and
both
she's very
together.
much the other side of the brain, right? I'm more creativity, she's more logic and reason.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, you need to like think like, long term. And I was like, okay, well, I like true crime. Maybe I can get into this. And then I barely passed my Chem 1A class. I think I got like a C.
Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't for me. And so it took a while for me to get into advertising, but I think it was kind of my way of like realizing that I can marry like creativity and business, right? Like I was like, okay, advertising, there's always going to be a need to promote products, and I'm like a big like, I love good branding, I love good design, and I've always been inspired by the way that a product, how it lives across all these different mediums. And so I've always loved campaigns. I think I was always inspired by that. And so that was a natural thing for me. So halfway through college, I was like, okay, I'm switching. And so then I think that's really where I started realizing, okay, like photography can still be a part of my career here, but just maybe in a different way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And was there like a specific class, professor, moment where you really felt like that was something that you could do?
Like in terms of photography or advertising?
Advertising, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's one particular teacher, a shout out to Delacruz, Professor Delacruz. He was amazing. He kind of led a lot of the advertising classes and like the major itself. And yeah, I had him for he was just always so encouraging, so supportive, and I still have a really good relationship with. I ended up actually taking his portraits for Content Mag.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think it was just like, I felt like I was in the right place at least, where I felt like I was, again, marrying these two things that like I can still bring in creativity, but it's like a little bit more stable, I guess you could say.
Totally.
Yeah.
So in those first of all, I guess context, right? So for folks that don't know, advertising, like that's not just creativity. It's not just
right.
So like what kind of stuff were you learning about in advertising as opposed to business?
Right. So in advertising specifically, we were learning more about like, well, it was interesting how a lot of the classes were more like group based, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's what you're doing. You like when you're out in an advertising agency, let's say, for example, like you're working with a team and there's different roles, right? There's project manager, there's like the statistics person, there's a person that's kind of like making sure that they're buying ad usage and spots, for publications, depending on what what it is.
Totally.
There's the creativity, the design, the
freelance.
Yeah. So there's just like it can be quite a lot. It's varied. So there's kind of like, and there was two like tracks actually. For advertising, there was like a creative track and a business track. So then you'd kind of lean into either or. So I obviously went into the creative track because I was like, I want to be doing the creative stuff. Yeah. And so so it's that's kind of like the thing. Yeah. But it's interesting because like I actually in graduating from college, I remember thinking like I'm gonna go straight into an agency.
Yeah.
And I feel like I was at a place, that time and place was very weird because I was applying everywhere, but I wasn't getting anything back. And it was like such a like catch-22 where like people were like, you need experience. But I'm like, no one is giving me the opportunity to get the experience so that I could be hired.
For sure.
So yeah, that's kind of what led into me starting my own agency in a way.
Yeah.
After that, so.
And that was such an interesting time too, right? Because I mean, I think when we were growing up too, like advertising kind of meant something different also. Yes. Like I've seen all of these like social media posts talking about like early 2000s phone commercials versus now and billboards and this. So I know a lot of stuff was getting brought in-house. I know people were really looking at like return on investment for what the ads were. And then obviously with social media, like that was like a big shift there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so transitioning into Weekend Creative. Mm-hmm. So you co-founded Weekend Creative with your partner, Ellie, and y'all met at SJSU. Were you both in the same advertising program?
No, so she was doing graphic design.
Okay.
And she kind of had a very unique path herself, like just did a lot of like creative things beforehand, like wedding planner, then eventually wanted to be a teacher. So there's a lot of things, but at some point we like met at San Jose State. I think this was like the last year that I was there, or second to last year, it might have been.
What was the connection? Do you remember?
So she was just taking random photography classes for fun because she would just really enjoy it. She was starting to realize how much she enjoyed the like art direction and photography, and not necessarily that she wanted to be a photographer herself, maybe at that time, I don't know, but we met in an intro to studio lighting class.
Awesome.
And I remember she had walked into the class, and at the time I was really obsessed with the brand Madewell, and I wanted that leather bag that everybody had at that time. And she came in and walked in with one, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're so cute. Like I complimented her on it, and she was like, great. And then we just found out that like we had to have a partner for the entire semester in that class.
Yeah.
And I later found out, she's like, I didn't like anyone else in the class, so as soon as you complimented me, I was like, let's be partners. And I was like, great. So that's kind of what started our friendship and kind of our working relationship too, because we realized like we worked really well together. The whole semester was just about each of us had our own assignments or our own projects.
Yeah.
The other person would assist the other person.
For sure.
Yeah.
And how do you kind of envision that or look back on that partnership?
Yeah,
Because-
I mean, with so much like what a unique way to meet somebody and for it to just like be so organic.
Yeah.
In how we work together and just like I think we had a lot of respect for each other and a lot of trust that was being built through that semester.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like mutual interest too about like the things that we cared about, that we liked. Some of those photographers that I mentioned, like she also knew of them as well. So I think there was a lot of like thematically and like design-wise and photography-wise, creative-wise, we merged really well together. And at that time is when she was interning for Content Magazine.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's when she and at that point in time, I wasn't quite as involved in the creative community quite yet. I was shooting a lot and I was doing a lot of like photographing influencers throughout college, photographing, small businesses and their like products, like lifestyle, just like I would pop in and take photos of their products.
Yeah.
But I was like, flat lays, like very, very basic.
And were those by like request or were you going out there and like seeking?
No, I was going out there.
Yeah,
I was
that's awesome.
Yeah. So there was like already a planting of a seed there as far as product photography goes.
For
but
sure.
I don't think I ever thought that it would be more than that. But yeah, she was the one who kind of told me about content, and I was like, I had no idea, and she like roped me in, and that's how I like got to know Daniel and got to be a part of the team. And so as she moved on to an actual job, and then I started interning, and so we like our working relationship just like never stopped after that. And we got to work on a lot of really fun editorials at Content, so many fun stories and moments of experience of like, oh my God, why is this thing not working during the shoot? And like, things like that, but all learning experiences
Totally.
For the future. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was also an interesting time too, because print magazine started kind of tilting down in kind of like level of interest with digital outlets and everything else. But yeah, I mean, that's like a cool way to learn and try to get your feet wet and try those things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely credit Content for being the reason that I got my stuff together in terms of like, okay, I have deadlines now. Oh, like what kind of file, like how should the file be when I send it, right? CMYK, I had no knowledge of this
It gets real
stuff.
pretty quick.
Real technical, yeah, exactly.
Totally.
So, yeah, so it was awesome. And then the editorial part of it too. Getting to work with the team and like all, having a crew, like that was like my first experience of like working on set with like, multiple people and having all of these different roles. I mean, I got to shoot Angela Johnson at the Winchester Mystery House.
Totally.
All because Daniel broke his arm the day before. And he was like, Arabela, you're up. I was like, oh my God.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, so both of y'all work for Content.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing your thing. And
Yes.
then you decided to spin off
Yes.
and do your own thing.
Yes.
What can you just tell me a little bit about the origins of
Yeah.
Weekend Creative?
Yeah.
And then I have more questions
Yes,
too. But yeah.
yes. So we were working on Content, and sometimes like you just want to like do your own thing and like have fun outside of work, right? Like I think with Content, it's a very specific type of audience and crowd, and especially like when you work for someone else, sometimes like that means that it's their vision, and so we respect that, and so we were just like we're feeling like we have this itch to like kind of grow outside of Content and like do some stuff of our own. And so that kind of prompted us to start doing shoots outside of Content for ourselves. And the reason that it was called Weekend Creative is because we were naturally being creative on the weekends and also on Mondays. So Mondays were our meeting days and weekends were when we'd shoot. And so it just kind of naturally, again, a very organic way of like how everything started. But I remember suddenly we were like sitting down thinking about like, okay, like if we're gonna do this, like I think we should make a list. I think we should make a list of like all these like brands that we really like and see if we can reach out to them, like offer them some photos in exchange for product. Which don't do that. Don't do that, you guys. We've learned. But it was the thing that the mindset that we had at the time, because we were like, okay, well we don't have anything to show, so the least we can do is get like portfolio work and like practice.
For sure.
And we made this list up, and and basically, well, and even before then, actually, we had we were going to go to this market in San Francisco. I don't know if you're familiar with West Coast Craft or Renegade, but they're like really cool markets where all these brands come. And we were like, well, if we're going to go there and if we're going to like pitch ourselves and our services, like we better get our stuff together. So we had our name, we got our business cards, we started our website. I mean, we had barely anything on it, just like our personal projects, like our own stuff. Yeah. But just like it was all organic of like all coming together. And then, back to like making that list of things of brands that we really liked. One of them was It's It ice cream. And so we went on their like dinosaur of a website and like went on their contact form, like reached out to them like, hey, would love some ice cream if you want some photos. And they responded. Okay. And they were like, yeah, this sounds great. And so we're like planning and then they come back around. They're like, actually, we have some very specific photos that we want taken. We're going to pay you $500. And we were like, no way. Like, wow, like, had no idea. I remember thinking that was so much money at the time. Yeah. And we were like, okay. And so then it just became this whole thing. I mean, we did not, like all of it went towards the studio, the props, sure. Like we made no money on that. But it was like the first inkling of like, okay, we can do this. And, people will pay for this. And we can be a business. And so it kind of all just naturally started happening and, got our license, started filling out the legal Zoom, like, how to become like legit. Yeah. Because now we got paid $500 and the IRS is going to come for us if we don't figure it out.
Tax person's coming, yeah.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, it just kind of snowballed. But I think the origins of it really is that we wanted to have fun and we wanted to create for ourselves.
Yeah. 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 And I guess background too, commercial photography, product photography, portrait photography, very different things.
We're working with inanimate objects here.
Yes, and I'm always fascinated too, like the behind the scenes stuff that Weekend Creative has done. Yeah. Like y'all have done such a good job of kind of like pulling back the curtain a little bit, yes. Which I think is so opposed to what advertising wants you to do.
And that was something that was like very important to us, is that like as we were building our business, we were learning so much because we didn't, like all the things that have come out of Weekend Creative were because we didn't have that like in the beginning, early stages of our business. Like we wanted to know how to like have something levitate or how to do this, like what technique for this. And we just didn't have those tools, but we were learning as we were going. Yeah. And on top of that, we were also learning about business, right? We're completely self-taught. Neither of us went to school for business. Yeah. Yeah, I did advertising, but that's like a very different, thing. But I think both of us naturally were like very, we were so in it and just pumped and excited about, doing this. Yeah. And so I think we just had a passion for learning, I think. And yeah, I think that like with product photography, like so, and photography in general, like it is very male dominated and very hush hush, like tight lipped. So that was one thing that we I think we really excelled in the very beginning. I think we were kind of a little bit of pioneers in terms of being very open books about here's the behind the scenes. We were sharing like literally how our set looks and the final photo, and people were like, oh wow, okay, we're really resonating, really connecting, and I feel like that's how like our audience started to grow in an organic way.
And so much of that too is storytelling. Like that's marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not about capturing something exactly the way that it looks, but it's capturing the feeling that it
and the
is supposed to give you.
And like
process. Yes. Yeah. And so how do you approach the creative side of that while working with brands that have like specific guidelines and things that they want to see? I mean, I feel like that's the struggle for all photographers all the time. Yeah. Is people's internal vision of what they want to see, even though they don't know how to capture it themselves. Yeah. And then your creative process. So how did you kind of balance those things?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the kind of like, right? It's kind of like being able, I mean, the thing is, I think as soon as we were in this, right, in product photography and commercial clients, right, we had to recognize that like we are collaborators. We're collaborators in these projects. And so we have to understand that like yes, like we have a vision, and like eventually, right, like people started to know our kind of work and coming to us for the kind of work that we were creating. But at some point in the beginning, right, we're kind of like a little bit playing this dance of like, okay, like we know what will look good for your brand, but like we also have to recognize that this is, at the end of the day, they're paying us to execute something.
Yeah.
And we're also hoping that they trust us enough with our expertise and that we're gonna like execute.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna make them look bad, obviously.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I think I think that's something that was part of our like, We Can Creative ethos, is that like we want to make sure that we're working with clients who want to have fun, who trust us, and who see the vision. But we understand that this is a collaborative space and that we're like both here to win. We want these photos to come to be the best that they are.
For sure.
There has to be some kind of give and take there.
Yeah, I mean, I think just what comes to mind is like, it's interesting because like there's always like a boss, right? Like there's always like a direction that something needs to go. But yeah, I think that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, pulling back the curtain, you've done work with Adobe, speaker at Adobe Max. You've done your live kind of education videos with Adobe as well. Kind of a question for folks in the early stages of doing photography. What's like a blind spot that photographers that want to like take the next step and like get paid for their work or break into kind of the creative industry, commercial photography, what's like a blind spot or something that you might?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think something that like a lot of photographers in their early stages of their career is like they focus a lot on gear, and I think you need to focus on your eye and your creativity and your like, on training your eye. I feel like gear, you will naturally improve and upgrade the stuff that you have. But I think what's really important is your creative eye and honing in on that. And that means practicing over and over again with whatever you have, right? Like sometimes even the most accessible tool you have is in your pocket, right? Your phone.
Totally.
Use that. Like start thinking about, I mean, one of the things that I think was really strong about like us, like Ellie and I coming together in Weekend Creative is like, she had a graphic design background. I had, I was just really interested in architecture and all these other different mediums, and we used a lot of those, in graphic design, there's all these principles, right? Like we kind of brought all those into our photography, right? Composition, repetition, like all these different things. And so really just like honing in on that part is going to take you a long way.
Yeah.
Practicing your eye, practicing noticing,
Yeah, I think that's cool because I think that ties into the last question too, of like balancing creativity with the form.
Yeah,
a lot of it comes down to
because I'm not technical.
Yeah,
I am not technical at all. It took me a really long time to get over my fear of lighting and studio and working with like in a studio. Like it gave me the heebie-jeebies. Like I felt so dumb, because I didn't know or I wasn't knowledgeable about it.
Yeah.
But I think you have to just kind of go for it and practice and it's trial and error.
For sure.
Trial and error. But I think I knew that I was strong in my vision and my eye, and I knew that over time I could learn something, a new gadget or a new equipment, new tool. But, I think it starts with like what, your perception and your perspective.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. Yeah, well, moving to your artist in residency at Haberdasher, that's like a whole nother thing that you're working on.
Yeah.
So you are doing mixed media.
Yes.
Portraits, manipulations of photography, much more personal.
Yes.
So what is kind of and just more context for people, right? So Haberdasher is a monthly occurrence that's been happening all summer. Francis Experience takes over the spot. They have a resident band, they have a performer, they have somebody doing product and sales, and then they have an artist that comes in and displays on the wall. So we've had a bunch of photographers. It's mostly been photography.
I think it's mostly been photography. Yeah, totally.
So so this one will be a little different. It's on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday, as it normally is. But yeah, it's an exhibition. So
my first one too.
Yeah, your first exhibition.
Yeah.
And what was
sweating a little bit.
what was the impetus for it? Like, did someone reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? Did you decide that you wanted to like take your creativity into different format? Or
yeah. Well, this year has been just like a big year of pivoting. I mean, I feel like life is just a constant pivot all the time. My business has ended this year, and so I kind of am in that space of transition of like figuring out what the next thing is, and. I have had some things happen in my past with my brother specifically. He became incarcerated a few years ago. And I had this idea in my head already that was marinating just based off of this experience, this traumatic experience. And, I think I was starting to really realize like, wow, like I think I need to lean into art a little bit more and kind of go into this like shift into a little bit of a more autobiographical kind of way of expressing myself.
Yeah.
And, I've had this idea of like, speaking on trauma and like how, in childhood and the patterns that we keep repeating, well into adulthood, even past childhood. And so all of it stemmed from this experience with my brother, right? We grew up in the same household, but we had vastly different experiences. And so Francis was the one, we had been friends, and like he just like reached out one day and was like, hey, like, I would love to have you be an artist, for one of our shows. And I was like, oh, I actually have like an idea that I've been like, it's been marinating and I just haven't had the opportunity to execute it.
Yeah.
And so I just said yes, even though I have never done an exhibit or have never been like, I have been an artist, right? I've been an artist for many, many years, but I don't think I've ever been an artist in this like exhibiting kind of like way of like creating bodies of work. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a new way of working for me that's a little bit more conceptual, more like personal, and in a way like I'm realizing that I need to find ways to alchemize like the pain and trauma that I've been through into art, and that's a way for me to process it. Mm-hmm. And so it was like perfect that he reached out at that time, and I was like, yes, let's do it. And so yeah, that's where we're at now. And I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm kind of figuring it out as I go, because that's what I've done all my life.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like, how do you? I mean, it's interesting. Comes to mind, like advertising. And now,
right. Because I'm still telling a story when I do product photography and when we're doing brand work.
Yes.
But it's just a very it's not coming from me, right? It's not my inner world. It's like it's the brand story.
Yeah, and it's not always like the realness.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes
like advertising
it isn't always.
can be, some stories have different levels and trajectories,
yes.
right? So,
yes.
But did you feel like that was? I don't know how to phrase it, but like, do you feel like that was something that you were neglecting, or like something that like?
Yeah, I mean, working, this was 8 years of Weekend Creative, and so like my personal work, my portrait work definitely took a backseat. I was still shooting for content, of course, but I think I just like wasn't shooting for myself quite as often. I was working, and sometimes that can also get really tiring too when you're just like always creating for other people.
Yeah.
And something that I will say that we did really well in Weekend Creative is that we did a lot of personal projects. So anytime we were feeling like drained from like by working with other people, we tried to make sure to come back to ourselves and be like, why did we get into this in the first place? It's because we wanted to create for ourselves. And so we made sure to like schedule those personal projects so that we could like revive our creativity and feel like, okay, like this was, like they say, there's like a phrase, it's like one for them, one for you.
Yeah.
And so in a way, like as I was dealing with the loss of my business this year, and and also the loss of like a specific relationship that I had, and I just was like, I think I was thinking a lot about like what it means to explore like ambiguous loss, right? Because even like my brother becoming incarcerated, it's not like he died, but he was plucked out of my life suddenly. Yeah. And so I think not many people are aware or maybe explore this ambiguous loss, right? Like a business, right? Like it's the end of an era here. So I think I was thinking about those things, and I was really realizing like, okay, yeah, I want to like explore this further and see what this means, and like, and kind of see it in this like art form, and like,
yeah. So what will folks see? Because it's photography.
Yes.
And
so I actually didn't take any of the photographs.
Yes.
So it's funny because the initial concept was supposed to be like a much bigger thing, but then I realized as I was like going, part of the project was going to be me going through childhood photos and like I was going to be embroidering, like stitching onto the photographs. And then I had all these other ideas of like me actually taking photographs and also like stitching on them as well. But as I was like going through all of these childhood photos of my brother and I was realizing I was like, this is like all one, like I need to start here. Sometimes childhood is where it kind of began, and I need to explore this exact thing, especially with all the things that happened this year. I was really like thinking a lot about attachment styles and patterns that we keep repeating, that kind of derive from our childhood, right, as like survival mechanisms. My father was not very present at some point in my life, and he left, and so I think about like that abandonment and how like that shows up in our relationships as adults, right? And so, I think I just like realized there was so much here in terms of our childhood photographs, and I was like, okay, I think I need to just like focus here on the past first, so that it can inform what the present looks like, and then the future,
Yeah.
So it's a lot of childhood photographs of my brother and I, and a lot of stitching, but the stitching is kind of like a metaphor. So like I mentioned, like my brother and I had very different experiences, even though we grew up in the same home. The way that we received love was very different. For me, it was like I had to be perfect and not be a burden and do things correctly. Meanwhile, he got attention by being chaotic and getting in trouble and kind of being that troublemaker. And so there's like instances where I've printed the same photo twice and the stitching is different just based off of our perspective.
Yeah.
And our upbringing.
Yeah, and I'm always fascinated with photographers, photos, and then just the personal relationships that people have with photos, especially going back into like the family archive.
Yes.
But what was your relationship with photos growing up, like in the house? Were there photos on the wall? Was it shoeboxes of photos? Like, did you have a relationship with these photos before, or was this something that like you discovered?
Yeah, no. This was definitely like my mom has always been, bless her, and my aunts for always taking photos with their disposable cameras. We have so many photos.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually like, and I feel lucky that we have that because I know not many people do.
Yeah.
But it was always like a point at, like my mom has always carried these albums and they're in our house and I love to bring them out as anytime that we can because there are certain stories tied to it and it brings up memories for our parents. I might not always remember like what that was, but I can see like, oh wow, I was obsessed with the camera even from this age, or like my brother and like just the way that we interacted and like so it's a very unique thing, but it has always been a part of. Yeah, I've always been surrounded by like photos and albums. And one thing that I remember, my grandma actually in Mexico, in her living room, she has like this gorgeous wall of like all of her grandchildren, and all of her children and grandchildren. And so like framed photos has always been just framed portraits have always been a thing.
Yeah.
And even specifically in Mexican culture, there's definitely the one like shoot that you have where they like do you up with like a boa and like your hair is like you look like it's like Dolly Parton hair and
fashion shoots.
The fashion shoot. I don't even know what you call them. They're like in
glamour shots.
Glamour shots. Yeah. We have those up on my grandma's wall.
Oh yeah. I think I had me and both my sisters matching Dalmatian gear. Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know what the vibe was.
What a journey. What a statement. What a like recognition of the importance of documenting them.
Yes.
Like I feel like a lot of times it's so subconscious for families to do those things, but it is important. And sometimes you don't recognize that until later on.
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about like inheritance, right, of like these archives and these photos, like, I mean, that's definitely inheritance of like physical objects, but also emotional, right? Like, what are the things that we're passing down?
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, in doing this project, it's very well, different and similar, right? Like it's a lot of work, I think, is the baseline.
I think I'm developing carpal tunnel. Like, I'm like, I need to take it easy. I need to figure out how to, but I'm also like, well, pain is art and art is pain. So.
Yeah. But how are you preparing for this different format? Because it's different in so many ways.
So many ways.
This is a physical piece that will go on a wall and exist in the real world.
I mean, I've been working 8 years in this product photography space where like the photos just go online. There's I think there was one brand when we worked with Blue Bottle Coffee, they printed out the campaign on their at their coffee shops in the Bay Area, and we thought it was the coolest thing, and we went to go see it, But like most of the time, they live in the ether and on the internet.
And so much of that too, like the set prep, the production that went behind the photos that end up digital, like that is an art form itself. And then you take it down, you put it in a box or whatever. But now it's like
a very physical thing. I'm like, this is a lot. And I'm like, I live in a little studio apartment. I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna start storing all my stuff.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
So it is a very different way of working, and obviously even just the act and the practice of like doing a very physical thing. When I'm shooting and photographing, yes, that's a very physical thing, but it's usually a 1 day or 2 day thing, sometimes even like a few hours, right? Like it might not even take that long, but this is like I'm taking my time in terms of like all the stitching that I've been doing.
For sure.
And so I find it's quite meditative actually, just like the way that you can just sit down and like kind of continue and repeat this pattern, right?
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Yeah.
So what do you hope, everybody always asks, like, what do you hope folks take away from it? A lot of times folks are going to take all kinds of different things away from it. But I think in this one, what do you hope you take away from this process and like getting the stuff on the wall and like after the show is over? I guess what do you hope that you're taking?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, I think I just like, this whole project has been just me examining like what I've like experienced, growing up and how that informs today, but also like how the present also like, how your memory of like what happened also informs things. And so it's been kind of like this oscillating thing. And I have to credit you and Alyssa Ray because we had a whole conversation about this, and it's what's prompted and sparked all of this, work on examining like memory, attachment, like the things we inherit emotionally, the things that get passed down. I think for sure for me, I know that I want to continue to build out the rest of what this looks like, just because I have other ideas that were meant to also happen with this, but I knew that I needed to focus on the past first for me to understand and kind of like lean into like, especially like in my mind, I'm like thinking of like before the trauma, before the traumatic experience, then like during it, which is just, a whole deconstructing of identity. If you've ever been through an experience, you know that it's a very identity shattering. And then what comes after, right? Repair, mend, familial relationships, how they come together. And so I hope to like continue to work on this project, but also like invite other people to like examine their own past and their own, wounds or patterns and know that they can make a change and, like form a new pattern or like, like I hope that they don't have to go through a traumatic experience like I did for it to like be something, for you to make a change.
Yeah.
But that you can decide one day to do something different.
Yeah. Do you think that this will have an impact on like personal photography that you do in the future, right? Like you mentioned like having ideas about this and you're still working on this project, so I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, right? But yeah, do you think that this process of working physically and doing exhibition stuff,
Yeah, I think so, for sure. I mean, the ideas are just swirling now, which is like so crazy because I remember there was like a class that I took in college. It was called conceptual photography, and at that time, I was very naive and very like, concept? Why do I have to have a concept? Like, why do I have to like write about what this means to me? Like, why can't it just be a pretty thing to look at, And I think when you dig a little bit deeper, and now that I've grown and I'm an adult and I think about these things, I'm like, oh wow, this is like, it can get real deep. And it like, there's a time and a place for things that are beautiful to look at, but then there's also like this kind of work with that is a little bit more emotional and personal.
Challenging.
And more challenging. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
You heard it here. August 5th. It's a Wednesday at
6 to
Haberdasher,
10.
6 to 10.
Yes.
Arabela will be displaying work. And where can folks find you? Do you have your Instagram website? You can let the camera know.
Yes. On Instagram, I am Arabela Espinoza. That's with one L. And arabelaespinoza.com. Work in progress. I haven't had a personal website in like 8 to 10 years. So
bookmark it.
Yeah, it's up there. It just says work in progress or like under construction. So I need to go through all of my archives and again, right, like going back and figuring out how to, revive my personal work and as I go into the shift of more personal.
And after this show, you can photograph the pieces, and those will be up on the website.
There you go.
Too.
Exactly.
That's
oh my
awesome.
God. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, true. Wow, I didn't even think about that.
You get that CV going.
I'm not that far ahead yet.
I love it.
I'm still stitching away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
thank
much,
you.
Arabela. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you at the show.
Me too.
Awesome.
This episode's music is 408 by Jack Pavlina. You can find him on Spotify as well as on Instagram at Jack Pavlina.